What's up, foodies? Today I'm making a restaurant-style roast beef, but I'm doing it in a way that works even on a busy weeknight. This is the method we used in restaurants because it was predictable. It doesn't matter who was on the line or how chaotic the kitchen was, the roast always came out the same. And that's why this is the perfect method for during the week. So let's get into it. Let's start with the cut of beef. I'm using a top sirloin. This is honestly one of my favorite cuts for this. It's affordable, it's got a good amount of flavor, and it's not a tough cut, so you don't need to cook it forever to get it nice and tender. But if you don't have a top sirloin, you can use inside round, eye round, or any lean roasting cut. This method's gonna work the same way no matter what. The only thing with those tough cuts is you're gonna wanna slice them thin across the grain when you serve them. Even a strip loin or a rib roast works great if you want to do something more special. The method doesn't change. The only real difference between the cuts is how tender the final roast is and how thick you can slice it. Everything else is the same. So I got about a 4-pound roast here. And the first thing I did was tie it up so everything cooks evenly and holds its shape. You could also get your butcher to tie it when you pick up the roast so you don't have to do it yourself. One less step you have to do on that weeknight. And for a weeknight roast, I usually get my butcher to do this so I don't have to worry about it. It just makes that process so much easier and quicker, eliminating steps where I can. Now I'm gonna season it generously with kosher salt on all sides. And you can do this right before you cook it, that's totally fine. The only time you're gonna run into an issue is if you salt it and then just leave it sitting for a bit. What happens is the salt pulls the moisture out to the surface and it kind of pools up on the outside of the beef. And then if you try to sear it during the stage, you won't get good browning because the surface is basically wet. So either salt it and cook it right away before that moisture starts to pull up, and if you don't want to sear it right away, you could always wait 1 hour before searing. Or you could do a dry brine by salting the day before so the moisture comes out and actually gets reabsorbed back into the meat, and then the surface dries off again. This also helps season the inside of the meat. This is why I always make sure my roast is dry before it actually goes into a hot pan. And like I said, if the outside's wet, it's just going to steam and take longer to get a good sear on it, which can cause overcooking and that dreaded gray band in your meat that everyone hates. Now place a heavy bottom pan on high heat. You can use a cast iron pan, a stainless steel pan, whatever pan you got. I just don't recommend a non-stick pan, just because you want to get it super hot, and non-stick pans are not meant to go that high. And it also doesn't develop a really good fond on the bottom of the pan, and that's something we're trying to get. Then add a tablespoon or 2 of oil and let it get nice and hot. Then place the roast in the pan and sear it. This is where a lot of the flavor is going to come from. If you want to skip this step, the roast will taste totally fine. And when you do, you get these nice little brown bits on the bottom of the pan. That's what ends up making the gravy actually taste beefy. So take your time here and get a good sear on your meat. It pays off later. Make sure you sear it on all sides and even the ends too. Just tilt it up on its side and get those too. Once it's brown everywhere, lift it out and place it on a pan and set it aside. Now toss in 2 onions, 2 carrots, and 2 celery stalks, all roughly chopped. And then toss in a few sprigs of thyme. You could also throw in some rosemary or a couple cloves of garlic or any herbs you like. Adding the veggies to the pan keeps the roast top off the bottom of the pan, so it cooks nice and even and it gives you a head start on the amazing gravy. Alright, place our roast on top of all those veggies and place it into the oven. I've got my oven set to 275 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the perfect temp for cooking a roast. It cooks it nice and slow and even minimizes that gray band you get on the outside of the roast when you cook it at a high heat. I'm also sticking a meat probe in it now so I can actually keep an eye on the temperature when it cooks. Because one thing you don't want to do with roast beef is guess. And if you don't have a meat probe or a thermometer, it's something you really should have in your kitchen. It really ups your cooking game. And if you need one, I have a few links for some in the description below. You also want to take your roast out about 10 degrees before the final temp of what you want, because it's going to keep climbing in temperature as it rests. This is called carryover cooking. So I'm shooting for a medium rare, which is about 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to pull this at 124 degrees Fahrenheit. Then it will rise to my desired temperature of 135 with its carryover cooking. Now place it into the oven and cook to your desired temp. Depending on the size of your roast, this could take anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours. There's no exact time, I just keep an eye on the probe. When your roast is done, take it out of the oven and set it on a sheet pan with a wire rack, and then tent it lightly with some foil. This is going to need about 20 to 30 minutes to rest. This resting time is what's going to keep the slices nice and juicy instead of losing everything on the cutting board. And the best part is, during the week, this is when you can finish the gravy, your sides, clean up, and get the family to the table. So while our beef is resting, let's make our gravy. We're going to keep all of our roasted vegetables in the pan, so don't take anything out yet. Add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste right into the pan, and cook that for about a minute or 2. It's just to get the raw tomato taste out. Then splash in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce and a cup of red wine, and let everything cook down by half. You're going to see it look a little thicker and glossy, and you'll see the bubbles get a little slower, and that's basically when it's good enough. After that, pour in 2 cups of beef stock or chicken stock if that's what you have on hand. Then just let the whole thing simmer for about 10 minutes. Once that's done, strain out all the vegetables and all the little bits because we've taken everything we need from them. What you end up with is a really flavorful liquid from the roast and the veggies and everything that's been sitting in the pan. I'm switching over to a separate pot to make the roux. I'm using this little saucepan I always reach for. It's one of those underrated pans nobody talks about. This is a saucepan. The sides are curved curved so nothing gets stuck in the corners, and it makes whisking roux way easier. You're not fighting with the edges of the pan or scraping burnt bits off the sides. Now you don't need this exact pan, but it definitely helps when you're making sauces all the time. Now melt 3 tablespoons of butter and add in 3 tablespoons of flour to make a roux. It should smell nice and almondy when it's ready. Mix it and cook it until it has the texture of wet sand. So this is a bit of a controversial part. You're not technically supposed to add hot liquid to a hot roux. You should be adding a cold liquid to hot roux or cold roux to hot liquid. Yeah, I just don't have time. It's a weeknight. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make our roux and then we're gonna add in our hot liquid. I just add a little bit at a time and whisk it out before I add more. As long as you don't dump all the stock in at once, it never really gives me any trouble. The roux grabs the liquid really fast and smooths itself out. And if you do end up with some lumps, you can always strain it through a mesh strainer. Once all your liquid is thickened, it should be able to coat the back of a spoon. You can adjust the thickness by adding a bit more roux or a bit more stock to your gravy. Then season it with a pinch of pepper. Now instead of adding salt right away, I like to add a little secret. I use a bit of soy sauce for some extra umami flavor. You don't need much, just about 1 to 2 tablespoons. And if it still needs salt after that, I just add a pinch of kosher salt. I don't want the gravy to taste like soy sauce, I just want depth from it. And that's basically the gravy done. So our roast is rested, let's take the roast and slice it up against the grain. Then I'm gonna lay a few slices down on a plate, and of course I got some Yorkshire pudding to go with it, because honestly roast beef without Yorkshires just feels wrong. So I'll tuck a couple Yorkshires on the side. Then just take the gravy we made and pour it over everything. If you want the recipe for my fail-proof Yorkshire puddings, and trust me, I failed many times trying to perfect this recipe, that's down in the description for you. If you give this a shot for a weekday dinner, let me know how it turns out in the comments below. And if you like this video, give a thumbs up, a subscribe down below, and until next time, FOOD-DEE out. Oh, that just failed. See you in the next one.